Welcome, gentle listeners. Tonight we journey into a story of profound deception, not of ghosts or monsters, but of a man who built a second life in the shadows of his first. A story of quiet discovery, shattering truth, and the ultimate reclaiming of a self long forgotten. If you're listening from somewhere in America, maybe in a quiet suburb of Dallas, a high-rise in New York, or a farmhouse in Iowa, settle in, breathe deeply, and let the tale unfold. I never imagined that at 62 years old, I would be navigating strange tree-lined streets at 11 o'clock at night, my hands gripping the steering wheel like a lifeline, my heart a frantic drum against my ribs. It started with a simple detour 3 hours earlier. I drove past the glass and steel tower where my husband, David, had been a partner for 25 years. The building was a dark monolith against the city sky. The parking garage, usually dotted with cars, was empty. A sign on the grand door stated the offices were closed for renovations, effective at 6 that evening. My first thought was a mistake, but there it was, the firm's angular logo, illuminated by a security light, a silent mockery. A cold dread pooled in my stomach. With trembling fingers, I called him. He answered on the second ring. "How's the late-night grind, darling?" I asked, coding my voice in the warm, easy tone of the supportive wife I'd been for 4 decades. The act was muscle memory. His reply was instant, smooth, rehearsed. "Buried, Evelyn. Can't talk. The Singapore merger is a beast. Don't wait up." And then, just before the line went dead, I heard it. Faint, but unmistakable. Soft laughter, a woman's murmur, the intimate rustle of fabric. The floor of my reality gave way, but my mind, the part lulled to sleep by years of comfortable routine, snapped awake with a brutal electric clarity. I opened the family safety app, a measure I'd insisted on after David had a minor car scare. The glowing blue dot representing his black Lexus wasn't downtown. It was static, pulsing in an upscale neighborhood 40 minutes from our home in Chicago, an area we'd never visited. Every mile of that drive felt like a peeling away, layers of assumed truth stripped back, revealing a raw, painful reality I wasn't prepared for. The neighborhood was a postcard of affluence. Impeccable Tudor homes sat behind sweeping lawns, bathed in the soft glow of wrought iron lampposts. And there, parked in the driveway of a sage-green 2-story house with white trim, was his car. A porch swing hung motionless. On the second floor, a lamp glowed behind sheer curtains. I parked several houses down and watched. My brain struggled to reconcile the image. This wasn't a colleague's home. It wasn't a hotel. It was a home. A home with a planter of red geraniums and a doormat that said, "The Miller Family." Then she appeared at the upstairs window, a woman, not young, but perhaps in her late 40s. Her blonde hair was tied back. She wore a cream-colored silk kimono. My breath caught. David had brought me back an identical one from Kyoto. Mine was emerald green. He called it a whisper of luxury. She looked out with a calm, contented expression that felt like a physical blow. My phone buzzed, a text from David. "Wrapping up here. Don't wait up. Order in, my love." The lie was so effortless, so cold. I checked my watch, 11:47 p.m. How many solitary meals, how many silent evenings had been a part of his other life? A boy appeared beside her, about 10. He had sandy hair and a lanky frame, but the way he shoved his hands in his pockets was so David. The woman smoothed his hair, and they disappeared. The words, "my husband," shattered in my mind. 40 years, 2 adult children, a lifetime's architecture built on a foundation of fiction. A crushing pain gripped my chest. I must have lost consciousness because I awoke at 5:53 a.m., stiff and disoriented. The green house remained. David's car was gone. I drove home in a numb haze. I arrived as his car turned into the driveway. He stepped out, suit jacket slung over his arm, a pink box from the upscale patisserie downtown in hand. "Morning, Evie," he said, kissing my cheek. "Brought you those almond croissants. Nasty all-nighter, but the deal's done." His performance was seamless. If I hadn't seen the evidence with my own eyes, I would have believed him. How many mornings had this scene played out, a perfect little lie served with pastry? "You're too good to me," I said, my voice miraculously steady. "Go shower. Coffee's almost ready." He hummed a tune as he walked away, a Sinatra song he loved, one I'd always associated with our happy weekends. As the shower ran, I moved with a purpose I didn't recognize. I opened his leather briefcase. Behind a panel I never knew existed was a second phone. It lit up. "Dad, don't forget science fair tomorrow. Mom's making your meatloaf." Then, Mom, another woman, another son. The puzzle pieces I'd ignored for years now flew together, forming a horrifying picture. The client dinners, the fishing weekends, the mysterious charges at toys and children's boutiques. I hadn't been naive. I had been committed to the story of us. I remembered my daughter, Chloe, at 16, saying she thought she saw him at the zoo with a woman and a little boy. "Must have been a client," I'd said, brushing it off. "Your father works so hard for everyone." Chloe was 16 then. The boy at the window was about 10. The timeline was a merciless equation. The shower stopped. I replaced everything with meticulous care. I was learning the language of secrets. He emerged, smelling of sandalwood soap. I handed him a mug. "Sleep at all at the office?" I asked. "A few hours on the couch. Mike was out cold in his office, snoring up a storm." Mike, his supposed partner. Mike moved to Arizona last year. The lie was so casual it took my breath away. I waited 3 days, 72 hours where I became the actress. I laughed at his stories. I asked about his work. I held his hand. He saw nothing. Why would he? Evelyn was constant, predictable, trusting. When I returned to the greenhouse, I was a ghost. Anonymous clothes, large sunglasses, a hat. I was no longer his wife. I was a private investigator on my own life. At 3:15 p.m., the woman, Laura, I would discover, emerged. She pushed a stroller. A baby, perhaps 8 months, cooed inside. The betrayal expanded, deepening into an abyss. It wasn't just one hidden child. I followed at a distance as she walked to a park. She met another mother. Their conversation was snippets of pediatrician visits and pureed food. Then, "Laura, you're lucky Greg is so involved. My husband barely changes a diaper." Greg. My David was Greg here. Laura smiled. "He is, though his trawl is crazy, sometimes 4 days straight, but he always makes it up. He's an amazing dad." 4 days, the length of his business trips, the window when he was home with me. We were appointments in his double-booked life. Later, in a cafe, I glimpsed her phone screen, a family photo on a ski slope. David, Greg, beaming, with the boy, Ben, beside him. Laura holding the baby. The resort was in Aspen, where David had a financial summit last winter. Walking back to my car, I passed a community baseball diamond, the sound of a bat hitting a ball, cheers, and then his voice, loud and encouraging. "Great eye, Ben! Wait for your pitch!" There he was, in jeans and a team cap, coaching first base. Ben, grinning from ear to ear, looking up at him with pure admiration. I watched, invisible for half an hour. This wasn't the distracted father of my children's teenage years. This was a man fully immersed, joyful, present. Which version was real? The one who read the paper at my breakfast table, or this man on the dusty field? My phone rang. Him. "Hey, sweetheart, got out early. Want me to grab Ty from that place you love?" I watched him slap a player on the back. "That sounds perfect. Get the drunken noodles and a bottle of the New Zealand Sauvignon Conch." "The Cloudy Bay. Got it. Love you, Evelyn." "Love you too," I said, the words ash in my mouth. That night, as he slept the deep, untroubled sleep of a man with compartments for everything, I faced my reflection. 62, 40 years given to a man who lived 2. The tears, when they came, were silent and vast. I wept for the betrayal, yes, but more for the woman in the mirror, the one who'd deferred her dreams of being a curator, who'd packed away her love for art history to be a full-time wife and mother because David thought it was what was best for the family. The next day, I climbed to the attic. In a trunk, I found my old college textbooks, my notes on Renaissance art. The passion on the yellowed pages was a relic from a stranger. I also hired someone, a discreet investigator named Mr. Ford. "He needs the whole truth," I told him. A week later, he placed a plain folder on my kitchen island. "It's not an affair, Mrs. Adams. It's a second existence." The first document was a marriage license, Gregory Miller to Laura Miller, 12 years prior. "Bigamy," I whispered. "Yes, he used a fabricated Social Security number, a clean backstory. David Adams and Gregory Miller are on paper 2 different men. The deception is comprehensive." The folder held their wedding photos on a Maui beach, birth certificates, Benjamin Miller, Sophia Miller, deeds for the greenhouse and a lake cabin, financial records for Miller Consulting, which won contracts based on insider knowledge from Adams and Pierce, a numbered account in the Caymans, then the final, cruelest detail. "Laura Miller believes you passed away 15 years ago, Mrs. Adams, a car accident. He presented himself as a grieving widower. He hadn't just hidden me, he'd buried me." The anger that rose then was not a fire, but ice, clear, hard, and sharp. It was not about emotion, it was about equity. I brought in my children. My son Mark was a forensic accountant. My daughter Chloe was a strategic communications director. We plotted not with heartbreak, but with precision. The truth would not be a private wound, it would be a public reckoning. We amassed evidence, the fraudulent tax filings, the illegal transfer of my late mother's inheritance, the corporate espionage. We chose the stage, our 40th anniversary vow renewal planned for the grand ballroom of the Palmer House, surrounded by 200 guests. The night arrived. David was radiant in his tuxedo. He spoke of enduring love, of shared history, of his rock, his Evelyn. He produced a ring, a stunning emerald to match the kimono. "Another 40 years?" he asked, to rapturous applause. I smiled, kissed him, and took the microphone. 40 years teaches you many truths," I began, my voice amplified and calm. "Some are beautiful, some have been carefully constructed." I tapped my tablet. The recorded call played over the sound system. David's voice. "It's fine, Laura. I told Evelyn I'm at the Denver conference. She never questions it. After all this time, she just accepts." The room plunged into a frozen silence. David's champagne flute slipped from his hand. "But let's provide some context," I said, my voice like steel. The screens around the ballroom flared to life. The marriage license, the family photos, the birth certificates, the deed to the house I'd never seen. Gasps rippled like shockwaves. I saw friends' hands fly to mouths, business partners' faces harden in disgust.
My children stood firm, their gazes fixed on their father. I nodded to Mark. He handed David a document. "This is a civil agreement. You sign it tonight, granting me full ownership of all marital assets, the house, the investments, free and clear. You walk away, or we proceed with criminal charges for bigamy, wire fraud, and grand larceny. The evidence is with the district attorney, the IRS, and the SEC. Your choice." His world, a house of cards built over 12 years, collapsed in the glittering light of a chandelier. He signed. The aftermath was swift and merciless. David was indicted. His firm expelled him. The financial fallout was massive. The story made national headlines. The Chicago bigamist. But this story was never about his ruin. It was about my renaissance. I ensured Laura and her children received a settlement from the recovered assets. They were his casualties, too. I went back to school, completing the master's degree I'd abandoned. I now volunteer as a docent at the Art Institute. And last week, as I prepared for a long-awaited trip to Florence, not with a tour group, but alone with my own itinerary, I found a final letter. Mr. Ford had saved it. It was from my father, written before his death, found in a safe deposit box David had controlled. "My dearest Evelyn, if you are reading this, you have found your strength. I always feared David's charm hit a hollow core. I saw him once years ago with a woman and child, but you seemed so happy, and I was an old man afraid of causing pain. Forgive my silence. There is a trust for you in your name alone. The documents are with my attorney, Mr. Shaw. Build the life you were meant to have, my brave girl. Paint your own portrait."
The trust was substantial, a final act of love from a father who saw what I could not. I don't need the money, but it will endow a foundation helping older women re-enter education and the workforce after life-altering transitions. My story closes not with an epilogue of bitterness, but a prologue of grace. At 64, I am learning to sculpt. I am reading poetry in Italian. I have coffee sometimes with a soft-spoken retired architect named Henry who loves discussing Gothic cathedrals and asks nothing but my interesting company. I am, finally, Evelyn, not David's wife, not a victim of a double life. Simply and completely myself. Remember, the most compelling stories are often not about the secrets we keep, but about the courage it takes to face them and the strength we find to build anew. Wherever you are listening from tonight, I wish you peace and the courage to live your own true story. Good night.